opposite star has a nub on the end, a nub on the end, a nub on the end.
Being, at the time of recording, the latest novel in Pratchett's Discworld series, and with me being something of a fan, I'm sure my mode of discovery is pretty easy to work out. As for Discworld itself, my sister got Discworld 2, Missing Presumed, for the good old PC many years ago. From there I hunted down a Pratchett novel at the library, which turned out to be Men-at-Arms, and from there to here. Despite what you may think, this is far more than simply football comes to the Discworld. It is the catalyst, this is true, but this is more of a story about escaping the shackles of your birth or heritage. Because the thing about football, the crucial thing about football, is that it's not just about football. Third person throughout, Pratchett has a very cinematic style of writing. You get a feel of where the camera would be pointed, where the cuts would be, the pans, the zooms, the close-ups. It all occurs naturally to you as you read. Pratchett also has a love for the footnote, which are usually used to provide a chuckle for the side. Unseen Academicals is comparatively light on footnotes though, which isn't actually a bad thing. What do you do when you find out your favourite author has Alzheimer's? Unless you're an expert in brain chemistry, there's not a great deal you can do. But what you do, or rather what I did do, was to start second-guessing things. Even though I know that the kind of Alzheimer's that Terry Pratchett has is rare and is currently only affecting his visual recognition, I went into this novel with a great degree of trepidation. Would I be able to spot glaring mistakes? Would there be an unusual number of typos? Would plot holes abound? And for the first dozen pages I was hyper-critical of everything. That was a strange sentence. Is that how you spell this word? When did... what? Terrible, I know, but I genuinely couldn't help it. But then it happened. It clicked. I suddenly realised what an unrelenting twat I was being. The sentence wasn't strange. That was how the word was meant to be spelled, and it all made sense. Perfect, twisted, hilarious sense. This was, and indeed is, Pratchett to the core. Fears finally dispelled, I ploughed on and realised that this is one of the funniest books I've ever read. Not as constant in joke quotient as Going Postal, but when the laughs hit, they often hit with the force of a gigantic elephant screaming through the atmosphere and smashing into the ground to create mineral wealth for the dwarves to mine. The characters, the way they spar and spark off each other, is a genuine joy to behold, each one believable but just slightly off-kilter enough to fit into some magical world where the greatest threat to the safety of the universe is being held in a secure little room where he draws plans for great engines of destruction next to perfect sketches of roses. There are quite a few new characters here, all mixed in with a healthy dose of established ones. There are a few new additions to the faculty of Unseen University, we meet the head of the Night Kitchen, and, of course, the catalyst to events, Mr. Nut, a creature of indeterminate species who is really less than entertaining throughout and does a good job of carrying the novel. For me, though, the highlight as a long-term reader is getting a glimpse into the mind and life of Lord Havelock Vetinari, the tyrant of Ankh-Morpork. I think I'd be right in saying that this novel contains the most we've ever been told about the man, which is, believe me, a good thing, as the less we know, the more interesting he is. But even so, the few insights we get are wonderful, and more so, we see why it is that his particular brand of tyranny works so damn well. There are many, many brilliant moments dotted throughout the novel, none of which I will spoil. They are all by turns dark, funny, epic, moving and grin-inducing, with Pratchett's cinematic style adding a dimension to them that no pair of cheap plastic specs ever could. One moment literally sent shivers down my spine, another made me want to slap someone for being stupid. I could, in all honesty, go on about how good this book is all day long, but that would start getting a bit too spoilerific. So, in the interests of fairness, I suppose I should try to find something bad to say about this. Well, if I'm being picky, and believe me, right now I am, one thing I tend to dislike about long-term series, I mean, it could be books, could be TV shows, I mean, whatever, is when they introduce a new element to proceedings late into the run and then act like it's always been a fixture of the world. I mean, aside from the whingy whiny Slayer, what really pissed me off about both Buffy and Angel was that they seemed to introduce brand new ancient prophecies every other week and then act as if, hey, this is how it's always been. Similarly here, as we're introduced to the world of Ankh-Morpork footy, we're told that it's been a feature of Ankh-Morpork life for years, but in 14 novels that are set mainly in the greatest city on the disc, I'll be damned if I can remember it being mentioned once. And That's about it, really. Things don't culminate quite how you would expect them to, but it doesn't matter because things are resolved in a very entertaining way involving chickens. But beyond that, I can't really think of a bad thing to say about it. You may not get some of it if you know sweet FA about the beautiful game, although, to be fair, I know next to sod all myself, but that's about it. All in all, this is a deeply satisfying read. It is funny and heartwarming, often at the same time. For long-term readers, there is at least one "he did what?" moment. For new readers, this is as good an introduction to the controlled anarchy of the Discworld as any, even if they don't get some of the references. And for all, there is the simple joy of reading a comic fantasy tale woven by a master of the craft.